Hi, everyone. I'm Marcin. I'm a product manager here at JetBrains for Kotlin Build Tools, and I wanted for us to take together a first look at the Kotlin ecosystem plugin prototype for Declarative Gradle. Firstly, I wanted to tell you why I am personally excited about Declarative Gradle. First of all, it's declarative. And what does this mean for the build script? It's parsed, not compiled, so the configuration time should be significantly faster. And also, it should be more resilient. If a single line is problematic, not your whole build script will fail, but we can still get the gist out of the rest of the build script. It's not possible to have a custom logic in your build script, and still, custom logic is possible in the plugins, but build engineering for build engineers, build scripts for everyone. All in all, it should result in significantly easier to read build scripts, and we can build so much better IDE support on top of it. Right now, it's literally impossible to, for example, have a UI for adding dependencies because there are so many ways to define the dependencies in the Gradle build script. With Declarative Gradle, you can very easily, almost trivially, build a lot of tooling on top of it. Second, it's a chance for a better developer experience. Less boilerplate and repetitions, better way to set defaults across the project. If you ever had to do a PhD of setting up a build SRC and convention plugin just to set a Java version in all of your projects, I feel you, and there will be a part for you. Next, it's a chance for uniform and slightly opinionated experience. And this is the large part of what this talk will be about. And what I mean here is that, for example, reasonable defaults and typical things available out of the box. Things that most of the people should use, you shouldn't use Google to find them. And finally, while we use Gradle, I hope that the Gradle will be less challenging to learn for the next generation. Finally, it's an occasion for spring cleaning. And there are two things. As you heard from Stefan talks, there is a lot of ways to do things in Gradle right now. And Declarative Gradle is a chance for Gradle to also clean those things up, to have one way of doing things, and not through a best practice, but just enforcing it through a DSL. On the Kotlin side, it's a great occasion for us to simplify a lot of overcomplicated DSLs that we accumulated over the time. And, KMP DSL is really nice. Whatever your use case, how much you want to wire things, you can do it. But at the same time, it's a Swiss Army knife, and sometimes when you're fighting a lion or an elephant, you don't need a Swiss Army knife. You need a spear with one pointy edge. Okay. Now, before we move on, let's make sure that we are on the same page with regard to the Declarative Gradle itself, which is kind of like the platform change on top of which the Kotlin ecosystem plugin will be. So right now, when you have the build script, you usually start reading from the plugins block, and you kind of have to compile it in your head that this is a JVM application using Spring Boot. In Declarative Gradle, the order is reverse. So when you open the build script, you immediately see the intent. This is a JVM application using Spring, and what exactly the plugins are there, what are their coordinates, this is job done already by the developers for you, so you don't have to worry about the typical stuff. And this thing here is called project type. Every sub-project that uses Declarative Gradle has to use one and only one project type, and this is like the intent for your sub-project. Second, right now when you read the build script, things that relate to the same things can be in different places. So for example, if we want to scan a build script for everything connected to tests, we really have to read the whole build script, probably a few times to really check if we found everything, especially that, for example, the test implementations can be buried deep in the dependencies block. What's more, there are some things that not only are in the two different places, they look totally different, right? There are two different designers, two different vendors providing two different plugins, and even though they set the same JVM version, they look totally different and can be in a different place. So in Declarative Gradle, in the JetBrains ecosystem plugin, this is how this code will look like. This is exactly on the left and on the right the same thing. So first of all, apart from the plugins, the project type provides also a scaffolding for your build script. You can think about it as kind of like a table of contents with sections where you can put things or you expect the configuration to be. And for example, there is a testing block where everything connected to testing, the configuration options, some of them will be out of the box there. The dependencies for the tests can be there. You see that the test implementation, the test in test implementation is gone. But also, this is a place for other plugins to put things there. So for example, if there is a different testing plugin, this is where it kind of will plug into the JVM application project type. Also, we do know the intent here that from the start, this is a JVM application, which means that we can take JVM options and put them up front and drop everything else, which means that instead of the current autocomplete, you get the shorter autocomplete that is only relevant for you. Also, this is an occasion for the project type designer, author, to sometimes put a thin layer on top of things. So for example, if you need to synchronize few things, like here between Java and Kotlin, you can put a thin layer of API on top of it to have a really nice one API to do a thing where you shouldn't worry about the details. Now, where does this JVM application actually come from? Like, how does it appear in your project? In the Declarative Gradle, settings file becomes significantly more important. And this is where you will import the plugins that provide the project types, the ecosystem plugin. So for example, if you want to write a JVM application with Spring support, you will import the JetBrains ecosystem plugin that will provide the project types. And the Spring part will come from the Spring ecosystem plugin. Right now in the prototype, it's actually all together, but that's on the prototype side. The second thing that will happen in the settings file is that you can set the defaults. I did hint about this, about the convention plugin. So what this piece of code does is that for every JVM application in your whole project, it enables the Spring support, and it sets the JVM version to 24. That's all. No build SRC, no convention plugin, you just write it like that. And also, it's really easy to parse and find. And probably this is my favorite thing in the Declarative Gradle. OK. I already told you about the JVM application, which, as you can guess, probably is the intended project type for the backend. But let's go through how we want to organize the things. For the mobile, there will be an Android application, and if you're fully sharing UI through Compose Multiplatform with iOS, we want to provide an iOS application project type, which is just a shell for the Xcode part, for you to not worry about it. But if you're not fully sharing the UI, or you're just sharing the business logic, of course, you will just plug it into the Xcode project. If you're developing for the web, there's a dedicated web application. If you are developing for the desktop, there is a dedicated, there's also a JVM application type. So as you can see, the kind of like the end products, so a web application, an Android application, kind of how we humans think about it, they all get their dedicated project types. And in between, for library models, there is one project type library to kind of like glue them together. One small caveat, the Android application, kind of similar to how the ecosystem right now is organized, this will be developed, or is developed actually, by the Android team. So you can already play with the Android ecosystem plugin. It's also on the prototype stage. And the vision is for those two ecosystems to neatly integrate with each other. Most of the changes will happen in the library model, so let's take a closer look at this one. So when you open a project, when you open a sub-project that is a library, the first things that you will notice is that the first two lines are kind of TLDR of the build script. Especially for the KMP projects, you don't have to scan the whole project to find all of the targets defined. You will just immediately see it in the first two lines. The second thing that you can notice is that we are changing the default level of abstractions. No more iOS ARM 9001. You just say iOS, and you opt in into all iOS subtargets. So also, if you want, as a library author, if you want to, like as a library author for KMP, you want to support all of the platforms, you don't have to spend an hour typing all of them out. You just list the 6, 7 of them. That's all. If you want to configure one of those platforms, there will be a dedicated platform configuration block, like for example for iOS, also for other platforms. So this is platform-specific configuration. And if for some reason you want to pin the sub-platforms, and for example you don't want to worry about iOS non-ARM target, then you can here opt out by specifying which sub-platforms you are targeting. Some other iOS-specific configuration will be here. And also, if you, for some reason, need to configure something specific for the simulator, we want to put it here, but we wanted to reorganize it so that the typical use cases are easy and the complex things are still possible, but sometimes you have to do a bit of more work. Those things, unfortunately, in the prototype are still strings. It's like a work in progress from Gradle, so as soon as this will be possible, we'll be changing it to the enums, but don't be surprised that in the prototype, these are actually strings. One new section that will be in the library is the publishing, and this will be all of your, let's call it, extension points for the library. So for example, if you're integrating with the iOS project, this is where you will define the export options for the iOS framework. And this is also where you will define all of the things around your Maven publication, whether it's a local or Maven central, like docs, publishing, that kind of thing. As you can expect, there will be a dependencies block in the library. And whether you're a JVM developer, Android developer, or KMP developer, it will look similar to how it is now, but it will be one place. So no top-level dependencies, no Kotlin dependencies, no Kotlin, KMP, source set, something dependencies. It's just one place. General dependencies go on the top level. If you have something platform-specific, they go under the platform sub-block. Testing block, similar to what we talked before. For the library, it's very similar, but also if you have some platform-specific configuration for testing, it will go into the same place, right? All things connected to testing in the same place. I will not walk through all of the project types, but I wanted to walk through the JVM application. So the dependencies testing, that's very similar. The packaging is also kind of your extension point. So how do we package and ship your JVM application? All of those things like Docker configuration, those things will go here. As I mentioned, it's a JVM application. We know it. We can show all of those JVM-specific options at the top. And also, you can immediately see that this is a JVM application as a name of the project type. It's not a Kotlin application. It's also not a Java application. So there is a Kotlin configuration block and Java configuration block. Like if you are mixing two languages, you don't have to configure anything out of the box. We do know and do acknowledge the fact that most of the backend applications are mixing Kotlin and Java to some extent. And we shouldn't force you to migrate your build script just because you're adding one Java file or you're adding a Kotlin file to your project, especially if most of the projects don't fully migrate from language to language. They just adopt one or the other, or they just mix, like especially for the larger projects with multiple teams. Okay, so let's summarize the key changes. First of all, we really wanted the simple to be easy and complex to be still possible. We fully embraced the modularization, product-oriented project types like web application, JVM application. For people that already migrated to AGP9, I think that you already got the taste of it. Product platforms are the new default level of the abstraction, so iOS, not iOS ARM64. And also there is no more artificial distinction between Kotlin multiplatform and like pure JVM. You never opt into a multi-platform. One platform, sure. Two platforms, yeah, that's multi-platform. 3 platforms. We also wanted it to be easy to add a platform, regardless of whether you're going from 1 to 2, or it's your 5th platform to add. Finally, we did want to make it easy to mix Java with Kotlin and Kotlin with Java. Okay, if you want to play with it or just watch it, you can head to this link, or this QR code leads you to the same thing. What's already there? The project types, JVM application, web application, and library is there. From the platform point of view, JVM web and iOS support is there. What's coming next? Enums. As soon as they are in the Gradle part, we'll switch to the enums from the strings. And we want your feedback. There are a lot of changes on the mental level, I would say like mental model level. We are confident in them, but we want to be sure. And we want to hear your feedback about it. How does it resonate with you? So please play with the prototype. You can also go to the repository. There are examples of migrated applications. For example, the pet clinic from Sebastian Deleuze is fully migrated to Declarative Gradle. You can see how it looks like. And yeah, give us a feedback. File issues. There is also a dedicated Slack channel on a Kotlin link. From things that are definitely there in the backlog, the publishing iOS framework, that's on our to-do list, dedicated Android platform. You can already try to mix the Android prototype, but still we are both in the prototype stages, so some things may not work. Sub-platform configurations, that's like we did postpone it slightly. And finally, the Kotlin and Java has some options, but it's definitely not the full extent of what it is now. OK, so whether you want to play with it, and by the way, with Declarative Gradle, you can decide to just migrate one project, one sub-project, one module, or you just want to take a look, head to the repository. And thank you. Don't forget to vote and provide the feedback. We do read it, and this is like helping us shape better talks for the next year. There is no Q&A for this talk, but if you would like to chat, ask questions, I'll be at the booth by the language evolution part, definitely after the talk, and I'll hang around there for the rest of the day. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the KotlinConf.